It's spring, which means spring sports. We deal with a lot of injuries here in the office, and a lot of people ask me, what can I do to prevent this, or how did this happen? There's a few things that we can do in terms of prevention when it comes to an injury. And this could be a sports injury, it can just be any old joint injury. Pretty much where it starts is we need to have control the inflammation in our body. We can do this with supplementation such as fish oil, turmeric, or we can also work on our diet. Now, here's where we can really focus in on the choices we make that can control the inflammation in the body. We can make choices like restrict our processed foods, which are high in seed oils, which cause inflammation. They're high in sugar, which cause inflammation. We can eat meats that are grass-fed rather than conventionally fed. Conventionally fed beef and chicken and everything are fed a lot of corn, which are very high in omega-6s, which we need, but in an excessive amount generate inflammation in the body. That's the exact reason why people take omega-3s, which is to try to balance that out. It's due to our diet. So making those good choices there can really help. A strong place that you can find good omega-3s and reduce your inflammation is good quality eggs. Now, I'm not just talking organic eggs, I'm talking about pasture-raised eggs. Pasture-raised is the key to that. It doesn't really matter too much if they're organic or not, because if they're in a pasture, then frankly, it's an organic pasture most likely. The reason those are much more healthier is they eat their natural diet of bugs out in the field rather than corn. Corn is not part of their normal diet. Corn is full of omega-6s, like we said a minute ago. That drives up the amount of omega-6s in the meat. You eat the meat, therefore you get those same omega-6s, just like if you're eating a bunch of corn. So that's one thing that you can do in your diet. Another thing, obviously, I think most people know at this point, is eating a bunch of vegetables and some fruits. Those vegetables really provide a lot of nutrients as well as fiber. Fiber helps slow down the absorption of carbohydrates into the body, which therefore keeps our insulin levels lower and our blood sugar lower. Higher blood sugars and higher insulin levels are inflammatory to the body. Anytime you have that inflammation, it's hard for things to heal. And we're talking chronic inflammation, not acute inflammation. There's quite a big difference. So those are the things you can do with your diet. When it comes to supplementation, there are plenty of supplements that you can take for joint health, and we recommend one that's pretty effective for a lot of our athletes. It's called Ligaplex 2. Now, Ligaplex 2 is actually a multivitamin itself, but it also has a bunch of joint compounds that are designed to support the ligaments, the bones, and support them in both their normal function, but also in healing. Once you're injured, that's a whole different ballgame. Now we're talking about acute inflammation. Now in acute inflammation, you have swelling process, the inflammation process. That inflammation process has to break down the damaged tissue and replace it with good tissue. Again, our inflammation really comes into play here. And this is why in acute inflammation, we do high doses of omega-3s, and we also use high doses of turmeric along with our Ligaplex. So we have two different types of Ligaplex. We have the Ligaplex 2 that we talked about. That's great for long-term support. And then we also have a short-term support, the Ligaplex 1, which is great for muscle, joint, tendon injuries during that acute inflammation phase. And when we pair those things together, we really start to see some improvement in the healing speed, which means people get back on the field, the court, the ice faster. Now, one last thing that we'll even pair up with that to even speed up healing even more is an herb complex that's called Gotu-Kola. This is great for collagen production. Now, you need collagen to heal your tendons and muscles and your bones because they're all different types of collagen. So those types of things really work to heal up those tissues and get people back onto the field and back into the game. The final thing that you can do, and as chiropractors, we do this a lot, and that is the chiropractic adjustment. The chiropractic adjustment is key both in the prevention as well as the recovery. In prevention, it helps maintain the body's ability to distribute stress and load throughout the body. This means, in a contact sport, that means distributing a hit, that energy from the hit throughout different tissues in the body rather than it focusing all in on one. And when you get an overload in one tissue, you get an injury. In terms of prevention, maintaining proper posture and mobility through our joints, such as the upper thoracic spine in a overhand thrower, like a baseball player. Those areas of the spine actually have to move to allow the full extension of the shoulder into the throwing position. When we have restrictions in these areas, we start to shift the stress and the load onto different areas of the shoulder, such as the rotator cuff or the labrum, and that can lead to long-term micro injury that eventually leads to a catastrophic injury that requires someone to sit out or to have surgery and that type of thing. Combining both controlling our diet, both ahead of time and during an injury, putting some good quality supplementation, such as Ligaplex 2 into our everyday regimen, as well as utilizing chiropractic care to maintain the body's mobility. We put those things all in place, we can really help prevent some of our injuries. And then even if we do get an injury, we can shift that around a little bit and work to repair the tissue through the chiropractic to restore the mobility to any injured tissues. We support those tissues in the acute phase, and we help control inflammation. Those things will help you get back to playing your sport or back to your activity faster and more completely with a better repair for longevity.